Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and today in the arena we are going to talk about rotation proofing our elemental deck. So this has been basically a new development here in MTG Arena, but it's caused a good amount of anxiety for enough people, both people returning to the game and people new to the game. So let's check something out. Let's go over here to Ixalan. Let's look at some mythic rares that maybe I don't have, and let's put it on not collected. When you add a card like this, let's see, we'll add like 4 Jisaths, and you hit craft all, this message comes up. Turn 3 wildcard, this action can't be undone, 3 mythic rare. Now I think if I hit finish here, it's going to give me the message of like, these will not be playable in such and such. Is that true? There it is. Warning, this will not be playable in standard and ranked formats this fall because of set rotation. Let's learn more. What do we got here? It's opening a website. You can tell because my face got really white. And it is a state of the beta from June going blah 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 blah, talking about historic. Not that helpful. Let me see if I can do let me see if I can do better so you don't have to read. So my go-to site for stuff about rotation is whatisstandard.com, spelled out. Whatisstandard.com. Feel free to check that out if you like the reading. But the way that it works, similar to other games, is after a certain point of time, cards go into an older format, which on Arena will be called Historic, and cards in Standard won't be playable. Right now, Historic will be a fun casual format without a ranked ladder. So crafting cards like Jisath here, that are part of Ixalan and are rotating out, means that you'll spend your mythic rares on a card that you won't be able to use in standard in ranked play after October something. They haven't announced the exact day in October, I don't think, but it's coming up in October, the rotation. And what do we lose? Well, we're going to lose Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan, Dominaria, and Core Set 2019. The sets that will still be legal are Guilds of Ravnica, Ravnica Allegiance, War of the Spark, Core Set 2020, and the new set. These will be cut from the rotation. They will rotate out when a new set is released. We don't know what that new set is. Picture it down here with a question mark. Put a little question mark right here. So 5 set standard as opposed to what we currently have, which is 8 set standard. That's going to be a huge difference, and we'll definitely get more into what that means for the format as it approaches. The reason people are talking about it now, and why I hear comments about it and every single day, is this kind of looming dread that we're spending wildcards and crafting decks with cards in them that you won't be able to use, which feels like lost value. It very much... Now, some of you are going to argue with me and be like, it is lost value. There are 2 things about rotation that are often forgotten. Thing number one. If you craft a really good tier 1 deck and use that deck to play a lot of events and win at a very high ratio because you're good at Magic and your deck is very strong, then you can win back the gems to spend on new cards. You did not lose value in that case. You could even have better value than if you just hadn't spent your wild cards on that deck. The other thing is that just because a deck is powerful now doesn't mean it will be powerful in the new format. You could have a strong rotation-proof deck. The new set could release cards that push other decks more, make other decks better, and then the deck that you would say rotation-proofed isn't as good as you had hoped anyway. And there you didn't gain value by saving your wild cards when you could have been using them on something else. So those things can happen. They are not normal. Actually, most of the time you can get a good amount of value by having a good rotation proof list. And because Magic is very much a game of taste, I'm going to spend some videos during this M20 format working on rotation proof decks for upcoming fall. Now remember that mystery set will come in and some cards will change in these decks. All right, I think I've talked about it enough. Let's work on rotation proofing elementals. And I picked this deck up front for a reason. If you need to craft a deck right now, this to me is a deck that is extremely fun and extremely rotation proof. Let's go remove some of the cards that won't still be here. M19 featured Llanowar Elves, and it was also featured in Dominaria, but right now that means that both editions of Llanowar Elves will be rotating out. So them leaving the deck is a bit of a blow, as quick mana is important to the deck. Lightning Strike is an M19 and Ixalan card at this point, and hasn't been reprinted, so it will also be leaving the deck. There you go. From basically the spell section of the deck, we have all the rest of these cards hanging out, which is nice. What we lost was a mana ramp spell and a removal spell, and this is actually pretty easy to fix. You can sub in Paradise Druid, or you can sub in Incubation Druid for the Llanowar Elves. I like Paradise Druid because we're a 3-color deck, and because the Paradise Druid's hexproof is going to be great. Also, Goblin Chain Whirler is going to leave the format, which to me is a big deal. Goblin Chain Whirler checking out of the format, I believe, will give us room to play Paradise Druid even more than we already do, as it was one of the only clean answers on the play against the Druid that punished it. So I like Paradise Druid for the spot. After that, we have a removal spell that we took out, and it's pretty easy to replace it with Lava Coil, although we may want something that deals with larger creatures as well. But for right now, just for the sake of making this video, and don't be afraid to suggest other changes in the comments if you have them, I sort of wondered if Fight with Fire would be a good one, but this is in Dominaria, so this one will not be staying. But a few other removal spells you could consider might be a Domri's Ambush, although I don't think we have enough creatures to really make that work quickly, although it's not bad with Paradise Druid to be sure. So yeah, let me know if there are other spells you would sub in these spots. Negate is a very good M20 reprint, so it can stay in the deck. It's a good catch-all in a deck like this that otherwise doesn't remove enchantments, artifacts, or planeswalkers easily. Then down the line, when we look at the rest of the deck, we have these lands. So this is going to be a big subject all of its own, that Dominaria is going to cut these lands. When Dominaria rotates, no more check lands. And it's going to make mana bases clunky, because what we're getting, what we appear to be getting in its place are temples. Now people keep asking me, should I craft my temples now? You should craft your temples when you feel comfortable crafting your temples. Right now, temples are only in enemy colors. We can assume that they'll print them in all of the colors. But for example, right now, if I cut Rootbound Crag, 2 red sources, I don't have the temples in red and green to replace it. I have to replace it with like Temple of Epiphany, which makes more blue sources. So it's a little bit awkward. And then we'll have to check our sources at the end and make sure it's still good, because we're also losing Hinterland Harbor. We can replace that straight up enough with Temple of Mystery. So green, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It does seem like I need at least 1 more green source, as it's our primary color, but we can try it as is. There will probably be the red-green temple printed, but it's hard to be totally sure about that. We're also down some forests. Losing Breeding Pool is... well, wait, that's not true. We still have Breeding Pool. Strike that from the record. Professional YouTuber. I am not one of those. But anyway, so we can try this with temples. The main thing that I'm worried about with the temples subbing in is that we're probably going to shock from our shock lands far more often. In the past, with the check lands, our shock lands could enter the battlefield tapped pretty often, because then the check lands would enter untapped, because these count as islands and mountains. Temple of Epiphany, Temple of Mystery do not do that. Instead, we're going to be playing this tapped on turn 1 most of the time, getting a scry, which is nice, but then we might have to shock to make our turn 2 play. So figuring out a good mana base with temples and shock lands is something I haven't put much time into. A little historical research might show when these were in standard together, or if they ever have been. And other than that, doing some math and coming up with some ideas for how to get them to play together sounds good, but that's not this video. This video is just about rotation proofing the deck. And if you don't have the wildcards right now for temples, I wouldn't blame you for using Guild Gates in the meantime. Guild Gates are not rotating. Guild Gates can get the job done. You will lose a little bit of efficiency. So as you see here, a pretty easy rotation proof pile. If you don't have enough mythics for Cavalier of Thorns, you can probably turn this into some other powerful cards. Nissa, who shakes the world could definitely be up to a 4 of to play with Hydroid Crassus. Other cards that have big effects on the battlefield, like just make sure that they're powerful. The main thing that we want about Cavalier of Thorns is that we want a big, strong body. You can play Biogenic Ooze in this spot if you already got it, for example. It just doesn't synergize with the elemental theme. Omnath you should get. This is a pretty darn sweet mythic, and you're going to want it in your life. So, here we go. Let's go play this deck in a few unranked games, just because I'd feel bad if I lost in ranked. Playing with a deck that is intentionally handicapped compared to the other decks available to other players. That's a personal feels bad for me. Doesn't mean you can't play it in ranked. I would guess you could still rank up with this deck if you play it well and are grinding often, but I'll go play some unranked games for the sake of my own personal sanity. It's a choice. Alright, right away we have colors and removal spells. If we're against a creature deck, we're in pretty good shape. I have rotation on the brain, so probably a lot of what we talk about between plays in these battles will be when our opponent plays a card that is going to rotate out. I'll bring it to your attention. You'll hear rotation about 500 times this video probably. Love seeing that Paradise Druid on top. Let's keep it. Nice little mana ramp. Then we can cast Omnath the next turn if we need to. Or we can just hold the Paradise Druid up with Hexproof and get ready to shock and lava coil things. And right away it's a Watery Grave, which isn't what you want to see when your hand has a lot of removal and one payoff card. If this is an Esper control deck, we're in a tough spot already. One Thought Erasure and poor Omnath hits the sidelines. But instead we see green, so maybe some Sultai, and we have Elemental versus Elemental action. We could play the Omnath here, but it only deals 1 damage. I think it's much better to remove the Leafkin Druid. Get out of here. Now, do I expose my Paradise Druid? I don't think that's worth it. Let's play the... well, we want to... actually, I'm going to play the Breeding Pool tapped. The Steam Vents can come down untapped and play a shock after the Omnath comes down. So maybe we want to do both. And do I want this 2 points of damage that much? No, I'll just pass it. I'd love to play Omnath and grow Omnath into a 4/4 the same turn. Alright, second Leafkin Druid. Alright. So we're going to get to do what I was talking about. We get to play the Omnath here. We get to deal 1 damage to this little Leafkin Druid. The opponent's like, that's fine. The Omnath slapped, no big deal. And then we pay 2 life. We put a +1/+1 counter on Omnath. And we shock down the Druid. So we lose no value. 1 shock, 1 Druid. We trade it up. This negate is probably good to see. This version of Elementals with Sultai is often a Command the Dreadhorde deck, and negating a Command the Dreadhorde could be a big play. There might also be some Planeswalkers in the mix. A Tameo may need to be countered. Wildgrowth Walker. Tap land, so no Explore creature there yet. Let's put out this tapped. Throw the Omnath. I don't want to trade the Paradise Druid for the Wildgrowth Walker, so we'll just send the giant Locus of Royal in for 5 damage. The opponent's thinking about it, but nah, I would not block any Explorer creature here. We already saw that the opponent runs Leafkin Druid, so I'm kind of wondering how many Explorer creatures they found room for in the deck. There's a Yarok, that's a big problem. Lifelink and Death Touch doubles triggers. I can't kill it at this stage. We'll need a top deck. And the opponent wants to get frisky with the Walker. I could trade the Druid and the Shock for it, but I just don't like the play. Actually, if the Wildgrowth Walker isn't here, the opponent will have to play something else to get the trades. I could also hold this and hope that I draw another Lava Coil. I don't love it, but I'm gonna do it. The opponent might be planning that Command the Dreadhorde. Ooh, I don't have enough green? Oh, that sucks. This would have been a solid play. Alright, I'll keep my... do I keep my Omnath, or do I want to trade with the Yarok? If the opponent is building everything around getting all these back and I counter that, I can really take out their game. Yarok I mean, Omnath isn't doing much if I'm not hitting my lands, but if I do keep hitting my lands, eventually the value train starts. Let's pass. Let's hang on to Omnath. Need another green. This could be a symptom of taking out the, ouch. Okay, I'm glad we got rid of the walker, aren't you? This could be another symptom of losing Hinterland Harbor and the other green source, Rootbound Crag. Alright, you do a lot of land. Let's see what you can make good with it. Thiefkin Druid can be the mana I need if it lives. So come on down, buddy. And we'll stare at each other some more. Look at the opponent looking in that graveyard. You know they wants it. It ain't much, though. I'd wait if I had a command, but I guess it depends on the rest of their grip as well. It's just a baby commanding of the Dreadhorde at this stage. Maybe. Okay. It's not bad. They found room for Hydroid Krasis in the deck, too. Ouchie. Alright, so Cavalier Thorns. At least we got something to block that Krasis. And there's a breeding pool. We could shock to have it untapped, but... Pay to life. Yeah. That way we have the negate open, but the opponent can also see we have a bunch of options. So who gets bigger? I guess the one with reach. The one that is probably a good one to make bigger. And say go. Battle continues. Now we have a whole bunch of stuff that is valuable in our graveyard. It really makes the opponent want to play the Dreadhorde. Ah, darn, they have a Risen Reef. That is not what you want to see. Well, it's what I want to see. I don't want them to see it. I would prefer it to be in my hand. But the Explore package is one of the things that is nearing the end of its standard life. So that's exciting for a lot of people. Not everybody likes the Explorer package, and I can't blame them. It never bothered me too much, but, you know, everything gets tiresome over time. I kind of thought that green needed some kind of a value thing to be competitive, and the Explorer package has been that thing. But maybe they're all red mages. Maybe the people who hate Wildgrowth Walkers so much are red mages, in which case, get wrecked. Oh, man. Alright. Here's Nissa. This is probably in trouble. But let's animate, say, some of our boys here. Here's a temple. Start making some creatures to fight off this menace. The opponent, what are they going to do to break through? That's the question. Or are they just going to spin an endless value train? They could eventually deck themselves, in theory. Maybe that's what we want. I am at the point where every land draws me a card. So that's something. If we draw a Hydroid Krasis, we do some pretty awesome things. The opponent's now at the point where they gain 1 billion life. Isn't that nice? And they explore 1 billion times. These games are fun. In their own, like, kind of sick and twisted way. You want that reef? Okay, we're on the self-mill train. Anything else want to play? If the opponent attacks me on the ground at all, I block with Cav. If they attack me at all, I block with Cav and I get back a Hydroid Krasis. So do I counter Nissa, who shakes the world, when my opponent has the command the Dreadhorde stuff to do? Yeah, let him have it. It's 1/3/3 a turn. They can definitely generate that just fine. Fine. Mill yourself. Because I honestly think that the way I win this game is tricking the opponent into milling themselves. I think I'm too far behind otherwise. So we're going to have some fun. Yeah, 4 lands into the bin. 22 cards in the deck. Hello, buddy. All right. Okay, so this is 10. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Woo! Alrighty then. So this makes 2 mana, this is a third, and then we can untap a land. The scary thing though is if I don't have the mana available on the battlefield, if it's a creature, the opponent somehow kills it, maybe I can't cast the negate. I do have double negate now too, which is nice. So let's untap you. Now we have 2 negates available. We can play a Scryland. We can save the Risen Reef for next turn. Target an elemental. Who wants to get bigger? I feel like my 3/3s aren't blocking enough here with all these 3/2s on the battlefield, so you can have a counter. There's a lava coil. Isn't the worst. And we could play it this turn. We'd have to tap one of our boys. I don't think so. We're going into a pretty huge turn from the opponent. Let's just hold. At least the Crassus demands that something happen. It can attack down the Planeswalkers. So let's see how the opponent wants to deal.
The land fights for us.
Mm-hmm. Cavalier of Thorns, sure. That can block, but it does add to the mill things going on. The opponent's about to mill 8 freaking cards, by God. By God, man. Cast down. Yeah, they've got an interesting build. They found room for lots of funky stuff. And there goes one of the commands. 9 cards in your deck. How are you gonna win? Here comes Tamio, here comes Tamio. Are we going for the Dread Horde? And here's a big one. Let's look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're gonna deck. They picked enough things to deck. So I can win the game. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. Oh wait, is that 21 damage? I don't know. I guess they get Dubs triggers, right? I missed the Omnath. They're going to kill me with my own Omnath. That's pretty awesome, right? I'm down. I'm totally cool with this. Yeah, they get double triggers. How many elementals? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 22 damage. Oh my gosh, if they got to stack both the triggers at the top, then they win. Good for them. I didn't even think about the fact that I had an Omnath in the graveyard. That's my bad. Plus we get to see this often event, and it's in unranked, so I don't even feel bad about it. This is totally fine with me. Ooh, but if a land enters the battlefield, they're forced to draw a card. So they have to choose not to put the land on the battlefield. Let's see if they know that. Okay, that's 1. We kind of need it to be the last card, too. So now that, yeah. If it had been the very last card, that would have been sweet. They put it on the battlefield. Don't goof this up. You've got it, opponent. You've got it. Don't deck yourself. You'll wreck yourself. It wasn't there. And now the Risen Reef triggers do nothing. The Cav does nothing. The Explorer does nothing. Look at it go. Oh, come on. Come on. This part is not hard. Let's go. I'm trying to let everybody see all the trigs. Hey, look at that. Behold. Endless triggers is fun. You can always watch it on 2x speed if I'm boring you with my love of nonsense. Go, baby, go. And Omnath, dead. Well done, opponent. Well done. We could have played the negate game, stalled that out, but I actually enjoyed that. I have no regrets. Okay, Paradise Druid, Risen Reef, Nissa, Shock. Alright. Looks good. Let's do it. On the draw is kind of rough here because I'd love to shock a 1 or 2 drop. But I also have this temple to play. And I think we'll have to start there. And Omnath seems good. We can keep that. Good enough draw for sure. 2 watery graves. And a discovery. The opponent gets to surveil 2. This card gets to stay after rotation. Curious to see if it will have a bigger role in the format at that point. Let's get our Paradise Druid down so that we have more options for our next turn, such as Risen Reef. Opponent having a read on the Paradise Druid. Well, if you're playing to kill it, well, that's a way to do it. Foot in mouth. However, I'm pretty happy about it. Now we can shock in Risen Reef here. And another Omnath. Not really what I was going for, but who knows. And the opponent with a second Cry, which makes sense. When you snap off a Cry that fast, there's usually a good reason for it. Tap land's catching up to us here. I'm going to bottom this Lava Coil because I have 2 shocks. Double shocking in Nicole Bolas is sad, but maybe that's what it has to be. And shock can hit this card.
The immortal Nicole.
Who's going? You're going. Right? Right. So the play now is Shock and Omnath, or Nissa. It hurts. We are not gaining much value from these plays. But you do what you gotta do. Slap. Get out of town, says Omnath. Enter the God Eternals. Brutal. Alright, can we fight back? That land off the top is nice. I don't know if Nissa will survive, but we'll try. Let's animate a forest and make a hexproof blocker for the Eternals, so that Nissa can be alive. Why do I play Magic? Why do I try? Why do I try? The worst. Have I ever been more wrecked? All right, let's pull back. Let's get back in the game somehow. Cavalier of Thorns isn't the worst top deck, and we get a Scry, so find me something good. Okay. It's really bad if the opponent has another Enter the God Eternals. I'm going to keep it, but if our opponent plays another Enter the God Eternals this turn, I might just have to jump into a lake of sadness. All right. All right. Go away. Go away. Vraska's Contempt. That card's rotating, but Jeebus, the perfect answer. Let's start doing some damage. We somehow got our opponent down to 2 cards. Are they good ones? Discovery is going to try to help find them another good one. Everybody's Grixis deck is a perfect mix. Oh my god, they did it. They surveilled both to the top. We are wrecked. We are so wrecked. Oh lord. Alright. Big top deck moment. Hoi! Fail. Epic fail. How many Hydroid Crassus are down here? Plenty. And a Bolus. That makes sense. That's pretty good. I'll give it one more draw step before the anguish is too much for me.
You have no weakness I cannot exploit.
Yeah, where were you? Where were you before? Where were you before? Now that was a proper thrashing. Alright. let's try it out. We'll need another green source for the Cav, but I think that could be arranged. This is another hand where it looks like we're going to have to shock a lot more than we may have in the former format, so my shock land theories are holding true, much to my annoyance, to be honest. I'd rather not have to shock as often, but there you go. Alright, Paradise Druid, do some work. Hollowed Fountain Shock. What do we got? Is it going to be the flyer deck or just white aggro? Flyers. Alrighty. So let's deploy another Paradise Druid. Let's get a tapped land. And let's just shock away the Storm Tamer before the opponent even gets done to tap with it and do anything. These Cavalier Thorns, they have reach. It's a big deal. Okay, they left mana open. What do you think that is? If it's an Essence Scatter, that's a big sadness, but let's call them on that. Prove to me you run Essence Scatter in your deck. Alright, Spectral Sailor, cool. Let's see. So I can pay 4 life to play a Leafkin Druid this turn. Is that worth it? I don't think so. It would be if I had a Hydroid Crassus, but I don't think it's worth it here. I think we'll find plenty of time for this later, and actually it's even better if we can find a Risen Reef first. Opponent says go. How about another? Just calling ya. Do you play counter spells? Alright, let's grab a temple and get a scry on and try to have a nice draw step. Lava Coil. Nice enough, I suppose. We've got the 5/6 Reachers. Jack Reachers. Jacked Reachers. That should be the nickname of the card, because they are jacked, because they are thick, and they have reach. Yep, opponent's trying to draw out of this. And chumping early on. It's tempting to hold this for a Risen Reef, but you can play it for Crassus. There are arguments either way. Let's just get it down. And this I don't want to hold for, well, it's 8 lands for an Omnath trigger, so we can play this as well. Everything's on the board. Cavalier of Thorns are going to try to carry the game against a 7-card hand. Wow, that just happened. I didn't see that coming. Alright, what are we putting on top? That's the bright side. We could put another Cavalier of Thorns on top. But how about Risen Reef into Omnath? That sounds pretty good. So I think this other one will resolve first. So let's go Omnath first. And then Risen Reef. Take action. Did that not work the way I thought it would? It didn't. If you want it first, you do it first. But see, I learn as I go too. Nothing wrong with that. We'll just hold that till next turn then. Did it wrong. Did it wrong. Storm Tamer returns. What else you got? Let's see if the opponent has a counter for the Reef. Jesus. Kind of a weird little blue-white deck, but it shows you can't predict the meta very well in Unranked at all. At least every land is a good draw now. There's an Eagle. Do that with Time Wipe all day, I guess. Opponent doesn't know about the Lava Coil coming up, so let's show him. See if we can fight back here. Every land we draw is another card as long as we have our Omnath. But bad draw is a shock. Drawing a shock would be particularly sad.
It is good to see you, my friend.
Although the Ajani might choose to get back a Storm Tamer. It's kind of a weirdo control tempo version. It's trying to do two jobs. I am wondering how that's going to work out. Enter tapped, grow my Omnath, draw a card. Attack a John Johns, knock you to 1. Take some of the options away from that card, also make it vulnerable to a shock.
Deliver us to victory.
Opponent's finding some Flood too. Now they have a Gideon. What are they going to do with that? Vigilance?
I believe in you, friend.
Vigilance. So, trying to make a blocker that can take on Omnath. Unfortunately, any other land is still going to brick them. Let's go with the Cab first. Big thud here. And a Temple, sure. Let's get our Scry on. Let's Scry before we draw. Throw the Omnath. Bottom the land. Draw the Lava Coil. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's do the Omnath, draw a card. And now the opponent doesn't want to see any more. The Cavalier Thorns draw apparently a bit too much along with the Omnath value train. Nobody likes seeing other people draw cards. Needing a green source to turn on another green source, and then needing yet another green source for the Cavalier, but I like keeping weird hands like this, to be honest. Scry lands often make me overconfident that I'll find what I need. We can put that experiment to the test right here live on the channel, where we'll see if Temple of Epiphany can help me, as well as being on the draw, locate a green source in the next 3 cards. Oh yeah, pressure's on now. Yes! I mean, sort of. I guess if our opponent gives us something to shock, the curve is fine. It is annoying going tap land, then green source, but it's okay. Still plays an early Nissa. Black and white. I don't remember the last time I saw 2 basic lands in a not monocolor deck. So, Lazatep Reaper. Reaver, I'm sorry. Let's keep the shock open. Let's go ahead and draw the Lava Coil to have more removal. Plus having more red cards to play with our red and blue flooded hand is a good idea so we don't get bottlenecked with just green cards in hand and 1 green source. So are you aristocrats? Are you zombies? Are you a brand new player who got paired against me? You've got the free sleeves and you've got the isolated chapel. You got some things going for you. And Lazatep Reaper is a card I've tried out in a variety of aristocrat-style sacrifice decks that want multiple bodies. It's not the worst idea. Take a. That's annoying because now I have to play my shock. Or we could save the shock. Because this is not really a big threat. Yeah, I want to save it for like a Priest of the Forgotten Gods, something of that nature. Lava Coil can hit this Tithe Taker. Or we could play a Paradise Druid. There's a Gutter Bones. Okay. One's got a lot of stuff. All of it, though, can be blocked by a Leafkin Druid. So let's play the Druid to try to buy ourselves a little bit of time. It might have a Plague Crafter or something else obnoxious. And let's avoid shocking here. Because if we shock to shock, it's kind of like... I don't know. We didn't do too much. Cruel Celebrant, that's something that needs to be shocked. Alright. Oh, we can play the Cavalier of Thorns. If we hit a red source, we can play the shock this turn. A lot could go wrong, though. We could also play the Nissa and animate a red source. And then we have shock open. The problem with that is Tithe Taker. I think the conservative route is just to Lava Coil the Taker, shock the Celebrant, have the Druid here block, and have a more stable board next turn. I think I like that a lot more. So let's start with the Lava Coil. We can hold up the shock. We could also shock to play a Paradise Druid as well, which Man, it is kind of hard to balance whether or not to shock to play these things, but I don't want to tap down my Leafkin Druid because that's like giving up some life anyway. So let's kick it on over. Alright, let's get some blocks on. I don't think anything here rotates. Maybe that mythical Aristocrats deck will suddenly become real when Standard finally changes. I'm going to take this damage. I'm still watching for a Priest of the Forgotten Gods for this shock. It's the card I'm the most afraid of. Just thinking, now I feel like I should do it now, because I know I want to use my mana next turn. Alright, down to 10. Another shock off the top is pretty welcome. Let's play our Cav of Thorns. Get a big body on the field. Gets an untapped forest, which is nice. Now we could pay the 2 life to have shock open here. We don't see a Hydroid Krasis yet, which is our way to gain life for those of you wondering. I'm going to keep preserving the life total. I think that this deck cheesing me out with some weird lifey shenanigans is what's going to go wrong. Don't always have to cast your spells as quickly as possible, although sometimes you should. It's weird. It's an up and a down here. So getting back an Omnath is interesting if I sack the Cav, but I feel like it's got to be the Druid. Right now the Cav is trying to hold the board. He's putting in all the work. And no attacks. Not even with the Death Toucher. That surprised me. I thought we'd see the Death Toucher in action. Alright, Nissa, and then we can play the Reef. Alright, let's get it cooking. Let's get Reef onto the board, see what we can do. And no attacks. So I should have put that into my hand because we didn't play a land this turn, and I could have also played the Paradise Druid. It's something I forget often, and I know I do, so I need to work on that when I'm using my Reef. Whenever I see a land, I default to putting it on the battlefield, but you can choose to leave it on top, then draw it, then play it untapped, and play my Paradise Druid in that case. Orzhov Enforcer wants to tag Nissa, that is fine with me. And God Eternal Bantu, here comes the sacrifice synergy. Opponent gonna fuel up on some cards. This is their big ta-da. Of course, they wish they had a Cruel Celebrant out, but for the most part, this is exactly what their deck wants to do. Temple of Mystery. Let's see what there is to see. Yes, yes, oh god, yes. Alrighty. Play you. There's not a great attack. God Eternal bounces off the Cav. The 3/3 would get eaten. The opponent's at 21. There isn't much to gain. So let's just animate one of our temples and pass the turn. Here's Sorin. What can Sorin get back? The Celebrant or the Plaguecrafter? Celebrant is probably the most impactful thing, which we can send it straight back from whence it came. God Eternal Bantu getting busy? Everybody's getting busy. Alright, I want to block the flyer. And yeah, let's block away the Bantu. Sending it back in the deck, the opponent will have to rebuild their board in order to get a good sacrifice trigger out of God Eternal Bantu anyway. So let's put the pressure on them to get that done. The opponent killed the temple instead of the forest. I think that's a mistake since the forest taps for double mana. I would have removed the forest in that spot for certain. Oh look, something I never noticed about these lands, they have that 0 casting cost. How helpful. Hunted Witness takes the battlefield. What you doing, Soren? What you gonna do? Playcrafter, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I guess I don't need the druid. The other thing that I could do is sacrifice Thornsy to get back the Omnath, but I don't think that's worth it. And then we will shock down the Soren so we don't have to think about it. Could also attack it down, but the opponent might be able to chump their way through that. And now we Mega Crassus.
Rise, my elemental friend.
Alright, so that's going to be 10. Yay! So much fun! Drawing all these cards, having all this life. And Risen Reef trigger from the Risen Reef, drawing more crashes. Let's also send in the Cavalier of Thorns just to show the opponent we too like to win the game. And now we'll see if the Aristocrats deck found a powerful enough engine to claw its way back in. If they're the version running Kaya's Wrath, could be interesting. Would make me at least reset. A Kaya's Wrath and a Playcrafter this turn. The Playcrafter to get rid of the Nissa would be pretty sharp. Alright, Thorns, what are we upgrading to? More Crassus. Endless Crassus for all. Alright, do you have the Playcrafter? No, it's Orzhov Enforcer. Hey, they had a line back in, but it didn't quite pan out. So that's 8, 9, 10, so it's the same value as the last one. Alright. Holy crap. That Crassus life. And let's drop off a Steam Vents as probably the lowest impact card here. One could say just save all the lands that might be able to be untapped if you need them to, though. How valuable is a Scry at this stage? But I'm gonna go with the Steam Vents. I'm partial to my Scry lands. The Stomping Grounds are forests. They combine with Nissa, so we don't want to throw those off. Yeah, no blocks, it's fine. I don't really need to ultimate. Like, ultimating Nissa is sometimes just straight wrong play, because the effect of the +1 and being on the board is so strong. So, God Eternal Bantu returns. Some stuff's getting sacrificed, some cards will be drawn. The opponent goes down to 3 lands. That's the tough part about God Eternal Bantu. How do you expect to compete with the elemental deck fully firing with only 3 lands? It's just not going to work. Anyway, I guess we can take a turn to deploy our Omnath and do some things like that. So let's go here. We have another Leafkin Druid, which can get our Omnath up to 4, but it doesn't need to be any higher. So what we'll do here is we'll deploy the Omnath, we'll tag the Bantu, then we'll Lava Coil it, so we don't have to worry about a large body on the battlefield, and we can be as aggressive as we want to be. The opponent can of course put Bantu back in the deck, but at this point drawing more Bantu is not in their best interest. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can play this now. Actually, I'm pretty sure we can just get away with a temple here. Target our Temple of Epiphany, I guess. Hit the opponent a little bit harder. Get busy. Go show them what's up. Post combat, we can hold up negate, we can play the Leafkin Druid. All thanks to the Dubs mana. And your turn. If the opponent has another Wrath, I'm ready. Gutter Bones. It's a very little 2-1 versus in a very big world. Here is a Playcrafter. I will gladly sacrifice this Leafkin Druid. Our opponent fighting until the bitter end, but the bitter end is coming, and it will not be kind.
Try my patience.
I believe we have enough to end the game without going through more math for the Hydroid Crassus, so let's just play a land, animate it, and swing. And opponent sees it, and that's the scoops. Let's well, we've got a pack. Let's open up a pack for the viewing audience. I know you love it. I know you love it. There's some gems on here. Yay. All right. Let's get back in the deck for a quick review on our way out the door. So, the main cards I'm really concerned about are the Lava Coils. Are they good enough against enough decks? Shock may also not be as good as it used to be in the new format. Right now I run them 100%, but Llanowar Elves are rotating. Gitu Lava Runner is rotating. Will the new 1-drops be as demanding of shock as the current ones are? That's not very clear. Lava Coil, is it effective enough? Should something else be in here? One card that I've toyed with is Unsummon. These enter the battlefield effects are pretty amazing when you use Unsummon on your own creature, and just to gain tempo on the opponent might be good enough. So you may actually want to try some Unsummons in this deck. They also aren't as demanding on red mana, so we could cut a few Steam Vents for some islands potentially, to make it so that we can cast blue stuff more. Actually, we're not having too many issues with the islands, but this would be more to avoid shocking ourselves as often as we do, which might be a big factor in the format. That was certainly a big deal today. Otherwise, I like the deck a lot and think it will be a very both fun to play for the time being and a potential contender in the future standard, even if it has a rough time in current standard against all the solid decks right now. Please leave me a comment. Let me know if you enjoyed this rotation-proof deck examination and if you want me to do more of them. Since I'm recording these well in advance before my vacation, you're probably going to see a few of these whether you like them or not, but I do want to know as I plan to do this well into the future, and I want to know if you enjoy looking at rotation-proof decks when there is a new standard on the horizon. Maybe give you a little less anxiety about crafting cards that won't be legal in 3 months, as well as pointing you towards some cards that you should craft that will remain competitive. Thank you for watching this video. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot. As always, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.